Welcome back to 23 Minute Reads with me, Maya D. This is kind of like my virtual book club because in these 5 minute or so videos, I share with you my takeaways from my current reading. Right now, that is The Dance Claimed Me. As a part of my 23 to 23 challenge, I read 23 minutes per day, every day as an action of self love, as an investment into myself, and as a way of providing myself with some consistency in an ever changing world. Hoping that you will join me along in this journey by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and leaving some comments down there in that comment section so that there's an actual dialogue going on. Having in mind that while I have several decades of experience as an educator, performer, and curriculum writer, I'm not the know-all be-all for this book. I'm simply providing a space for dialogue. Well, this week I read pages up to page 55 because I like to read all the pages that come before the numbers. And here are my 3 takeaways. Takeaway number 1 is Wochika. Wochika was a camp in New York and was short for Workers' Children's Camp. Dr. Pearl Primus worked at the camp during the 1940s, and I bring this up because I am a deep believer in the beauty that comes from the innovation and the inspiration that comes from sharing space, right? So the beautiful shared space of Wochika included artists like Primus, Paul Robeson, illustrator Charles White, Jacob Lawrence, Gwendolyn Knight, Langston Hughes, Augusta Savage, and Lynette Carroll. These artists visited the camp and worked directly with the students, whose population, this is a quote from the book reads, the camp welcomed Asians, Puerto Ricans, Italians, blacks, and whites, end quote. So this camp cost about $8 a week during that time, which was the equivalent of a food budget for a family of 4. A wonderful thing about this camp was it was created not only to be diverse, but also inclusive and equitable. So throughout the year, fundraising happened so that students weren't turned away just because they couldn't afford the camp. It was made for everybody to get this experience. So campers were afforded this privileged experience of working in the arts that make up American culture, which is quite different from the political and social landscape outside of the camp. Camp Wochicha was even a place that Pearl Primus herself saw her worlds come together in that she would see Hunter's College and the new dance group and Wochika experiences all come together during those fundraising events and so forth. I think this quote at the end sums it up. The quote reads, Camp Wochika, the spawning ground of artistic careers for children and counselors alike, and a microcosm of the radical movements of New York politics and the cultural movement of the late 1930s and 1940s. Takeaway number 2 is Strange Fruit. And some of us might be familiar with this choreography of Primus that is and was danced to a poem by high school teacher Lewis Allen under the pen name Miracle. But did you know that this choreography's original name was A Man Has Just Been Lynched? Primus is given credit for her ability to embody content that she researched and disseminated via her choreographies. In order to help convey the atrocity, the tragedies of lynching, in this piece, Primus embodies a white woman who is approaching a lynching right after the mob has dispersed. It was noted that one of the most impactful performances of this piece was actually done in silence. And in that performance, the audience could really hear her gasping for air and her beating on her chest. So a different type of visceral experience, I would imagine, happened from the silence. This is activism via dance. Takeaway number 3 is ethnic versus modern. John Martin, the dance critic, coined the term modern dance and said it explained what was going on in that current time. It was the American experience. But this is not to say that some of those pioneers of the modern dance form and that first generation of dancers didn't borrow from Eastern concepts, right? So we want to make sure that we are acknowledging that. There's a quote in the book that reads, The idea that African traditions could be encapsulated and set apart from the central thrust of modern dance aesthetic was alien to her training and her developing sensibility. Early modern dancers like Ted Shawn and Ruth St. Denis created theaters based on ethnic dance forms, but their ethnicity was never a question because they're white. End quote. At the bottom of page, or further down on page 43, there's also a quote from Joe Nash that says, "White dancers are ethnic dancers." End quote. That is to say, and to remember that ethnicity is encompassed by everybody, right? And that these dancers were also doing ethnic dances like Juba, ethnic dances like Juba, right? Why do I bring that up? I bring that up because there is a tendency, there was and is a tendency to categorize Primus as a ethnic dancer and not acknowledge that she shared the stage with, trained with, studied with Martha Graham, Merce Cunningham, Hanya Holm, Doris Humphrey, and Jose Limon. We must remember that modern techniques, performance techniques, also include an element of folkloric, traditional, ethnic dance forms, and that at times white dancers are seen as being innovative when they use this source material, but that same claim is not given to black dancers. They are pigeonholed into being called ethnic dancers. So the question is why? And the question is, do we have to continue this thing or that thing? I would love to hear your ideas down there in the comments, because that was all three of my takeaways. Thank you for staying to the end. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, because I would love our virtual book club to grow to 500 viewers, or 500 not viewers, because I want us to be talking to one another. 500, a community of 500 by the end of this year. So stay blessed, spread a good word, and I'll see you soon.